It wasn't doing anything for a second. Just a minute. So it looks like we are live on Zoom, and so we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning, happy Monday. My name is Jillian with CEO Consulting Group. I am the Vice President of Marketing, fractional CMO, and your friend here to help you with your marketing for your small business. And I am here with my sweet friends, Heather and Kelly. Heather and Kelly, good morning. Welcome to Marketing Monday.
Happy Monday. Good
How are
morning.
you all doing today?
Good.
Doing great. How are you? Good. How's the weather up in Virginia? I'm in Orlando. It's hot here. What's your weather like up there?
It's been rainy but beautiful today, it looks like. It's actually been beautiful the last couple
Oh,
days.
I love that.
Yes,
I
the
do
rain
enjoy a
finally
rainy day.
stopped.
Yeah.
Did it?
Finally,
I love
yes.
that. So, something delightful that we discovered this weekend, me and my kids, is I live on the first floor of an apartment, and it like my porch is fully from top to bottom is fully screened in. A duck laid her nest in the corner of our porch. We can see everything.
Oh,
She has 16 eggs, which I did not know they could have that many. I was like,
no.
she can't even cover them all. So she has another mama duck that comes over and like sheds her undercoat to stuff around all that. So cute. It makes my heart so happy.
Oh,
So my kids were sitting out there this weekend and we were just eating snacks, watching the ducks with their little baby eggs. It was so cute. So that was a little delightful surprise for the weekend.
that's
um,
awesome.
That is
isn't
adorable.
that
I love
lovely?
that.
Also, and I know I'm the only one that's a mom on this call, but for anyone who's watching us, anybody else on summer break, because my kids are out of school, so now we're in summer. Some people love that. I have mixed feelings about my kids being home all summer. So we're going to talk about summer today. It's June. This makes it the mid-year check-in, and we want to talk about what that means for your business. And before we do that, I wanted to take a moment to talk about Heather and Kelly and their roles in Marketing Monday, because we want to make sure that as you drop in and hang out with us, whether you follow us live or if you get on with us as a replay, that you know what kind of questions to ask. How can we be of service to you in the moment? And so, most of you, if you've been watching us, should know who Heather is. So, Heather is Sandbox Communications, and me and her had this kind of brainchild together. And so, we started this together. Heather, do you want to give us like a couple little talking points about your company, what you do, and who your ideal client is?
Sure. Well, Sandbox Communications helps small businesses grow their online presence strategically through search engine optimization and Google Business Profile optimization. We help you with your digital footprint, something that most people, when I say that, kind of go, huh? And we all know we need it, but my goal is to make it approachable and accessible. So I like to try and educate and support and help my clients as they grow. So thank you for letting me share
Awesome.
that. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I love that. And now Kelly is like I don't know how to explain it. I like to think of it like our resident leadership expert. And so I don't feel like that's the right term to use or way to explain it, but Kelly has this exceptional ability to not just understand people and how they interact with each other, but then how to help make them move in the direction that you need them to move in order for you to get the results from them that you need to get from them, especially from a co-working experience or employee employer experience, and from the perspective of trying to grow yourself and trying to move yourself through either your career or your business. So, Kelly, talk to us about who you are, introduce us to your company, and tell us a little bit about what you do and who your ideal client would be for you.
Well, for starters, thank you for that introduction, Jillian. That's very, very, very kind. So I appreciate that.
Yes.
Kelly Featheringham, Team Leadership Solutions. So as you mentioned, I work in the leadership space. I work predominantly with women in leadership. I'll take on some guys, but I really like to champion the ladies. I think that sometimes it's a lot more challenging than even we realize when we're working in organizations. I do work with some entrepreneurs, but most of my clients and my students in my classes and my courses are working for other companies, other people, trying to figure out how to get a leadership position where you're starting to manage people, or you've been in that position for a little while and you're trying to figure out how to keep climbing that ladder in the way that is resonant with what is in your heart. I think that one of the key things that I find so often is there's so many voices in the business world and in the big girl world telling us where and how we're supposed to go, that sometimes we lose touch with what we see leadership or our path wanting to be. We kind of start checking off boxes and lose sight of why and where we want it to go in our trajectory. So I help ladies kind of figure out what that voice is and if it is in connection with where they're headed, and lead themselves first, lead by example
Oh,
so that they can be happy in their leadership so that they can lead others more effectively.
yeah. I love that. It's such a great way to explain it.
Thank
I've
you.
taken some of the test or however you call whatever you call the assessments, to learn about yourself. And I honestly, I might be like an assessment junkie. I know my IQ, I know my EQ, I know my disc profile, I know my personality type, I know my strength finders. I like taking those kinds of tests because I like to learn about myself. But it is so empowering. So if you're watching with us and you can't speak intelligently to who you are, you're missing opportunity in your business because you are your business. So if you don't really know who you are, how you lead, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what areas you need to spend time growing in, and what areas you need to learn to delegate. If you don't know those things about yourself, you could be having a really beautiful entrepreneurial experience or career experience, but instead you're unnecessarily struggling because you just don't know this self-awareness piece that you could be getting through working with people like Kelly. So definitely highly, highly encourage if you feel like you're in a season where you're struggling with your marketing, if you're struggling with your internal understanding of your role in this season of your life. If you're struggling with the functionality of your website, you feel like no matter what you do, those results aren't coming in. We exist to help. We're just here to be a resource. So reach out. Now, with that being said, let's spend the next 21 minutes talking about June and the mid-year check-in because this is really, really important. Before everyone drops off for the summer, which, if you're up north, I think that's coming in the next week or two. If it hasn't already, down south, we already are out of school. So I want to make sure that before everybody checks out for all those beautiful vacations they're going on, that you take some time to do your due diligence. And we want to speak to a couple of these areas and maybe how we do them or have done them in the past, or what's worked for us, or where we just threw the white flag up and hired. Because sometimes you got to know your strengths and weaknesses, like we said. So the very first thing and topically that we're going to talk about is you need to review your goals. Uh, you can't make a plan to move forward or to understand what direction to move in if you don't know where you're going or where you come from or what your goals are. So I'm curious to know, and I'm going to start with Kelly just because you're at the top of my screen based on how my Zoom is settled right now. What did you set out to accomplish in Q1 and Q2? And, are you on track? Were you on track? How did that go for you this year, with the start of 2025?
Yeah. So, gosh, let's see, what did I set out to accomplish? A lot. I always set, we always set these big goals, right? And then typically the way I go and I throw a lot of things down on paper and then I kind of rack and stack what's realistic, how I can break it down and how I can spread it out. So my two main goals for Q1 was I've been working on building out my LinkedIn following for the last almost a year now. So I got really serious about my strategy in the fall. So Q1 was where I started to gain some momentum, and I've really started tracking my analytics and showing up there more intentionally every day to support my community on there. My metrics look good. So Q1 and Q2 really seem to, Q1 look good. Q2 looks really good. So I'm excited about that. It's always rewarding when you are trying something you're not really sure if it's going to work and it starts to hum. The other thing
Mm-hmm.
is I'm working on a um, and I can only give a little bit of details this week because the information will be forthcoming. But I've been working on a new project for some junior ladies. I find that I speak to a lot of women out there who say that leadership coaching and training is not something their organization is willing to pay for, and they can't really afford a leadership coach when they're earlier in their career. So I've been trying to listen and come up with something so that I can support the junior me's as well as the mid to senior me's. So um, that's almost finished. So that's kind of it's bleeding a little bit into, I guess, yeah, we're still in Q2, right? One, two, three, count my months. I've got a few more weeks left, so it'll be finished by the end of Q2. So
Absolutely. That's
yeah.
delightful. Heather, I want to ask the same questions to you. I feel like it's good for, different industries. It's just good for everyone to hear these differences. So I'm going to re-ask the question. What did you set out to accomplish in Q1 and Q2? And, what's on track or what's off? And, how are you adjusting to accommodate?
So I think one of the before I dive into actually what I did, because of course I have to be different. I wanted to tap into something that I always do this. I know, I'm sorry. I wanted to tap into something that Kelly said, and she said she started tapping into her analytics, and I think that one of the things that I wanted to say is with my goals, they're not quite at the point where I'm looking at analytics. I'm looking at big picture. Like, so my goal was really to ensure that my focus was on track, that um, I am in the right space in terms of my business, um, and am I doing the right thing? So, in fact, actually, just this morning, I launched a DBA so that I can focus on fractional marketing and communications. And I wanted to do that because I clarified my audience, meaning um,
Very good.
the new DBA is called Castle Bridge Communications, and it's not really going to be for this audience. This audience will definitely be Sandbox. It's going to be
Mhm.
for slightly larger companies, and I wanted to get it launched, and literally just this morning got everything launched. Um, but one of the things that I was trying to get to is right now that focus, um, that clarity of my audience, who I'm serving and how I'm serving them. That's been my big focus this year and what I'm doing.
Mhm.
But back to Kelly's and her analytics is that as we change throughout our how long we've been in business, like when you have your clarity, when you know what you're doing, when okay, I've now been playing with LinkedIn for a while. Now I really need to dive into the analytics. So
Mhm.
one of the things that I want to share is that, as we're looking at our goals, as we're looking at who we are and what we want to achieve, we're not all going to be on the same page. We're all going to be at different stages, and we're going to need different tools on those stages. So right now mine is clarity. My next goal will actually be more around the analytics. Am I driving traffic? Am I getting those clients? How many hits do I have on my LinkedIn? Those kind of things. So our
Mhm.
goals evolve as we evolve, I think, is really what I was trying to get into.
Absolutely. The I like to call it being in the flow, but like the general flexibility of how you ebb and flow in your business is so key because if you're too firm on the way you handle your goals and it breaks you too. Like it makes you feel like you're incapable or incompetent or whatever the negative is for you in that situation. But the reality is like you think about, and I'm going to use I apologize if you've never been to Florida and a beautiful hurricane, but let's talk about Florida and hurricane. These gigantic oak trees can take an extraordinary amount of wind and rain. But if it's dry before the hurricane, they snap like twigs. So when we go through, if we go into a hurricane season but had a drought leading up to it, every tree is broken. We go into hurricane season, but it was wet, those trees just bend. And the neat thing about how they bend is they usually bend in circles. So all your trees go from being big and wide to looking like they twist into each other, changes the whole shape of them. They still beautiful and they're still standing. And when everything dries, they just continue to grow up and out. But we've got to be able to be flexible in our businesses because everything is going to ebb and flow. Your goal for your business can stay the same. How you get there has to stay flexible because it's just not always going to be copy paste for everyone. So I really love that
Yeah.
perspective, sharing that. It's really great. Now, I want to make a note for everyone that something you need to be doing in your mid-year checkup is to run your numbers. But I want to have a marketing Monday where we actually talk about your numbers a little bit. So I'm going to invite someone in to do that. If you're writing notes and you need a checklist, here's what you need to be looking at this month. If you want to do it early, great, or when you close your books, profit and loss statements, your cash flow, budget versus actuals, and all your ROI on your marketing initiatives. So if you just need to take a look at your numbers, if you don't know how to read your numbers, work with someone who does, an accountant, a bookkeeper, a mentor. Go into the sisterhood, find a buddy, go to, Tina, like go to someone. Let's figure it out because when you know your numbers, you are empowered and it will impact your business in a positive way. The next thing, and this one takes humility, but when you do it right, and Tina will tell you this is a 10 out of 10. If you do this right, you are going to have the most amazing retention. You need to check in with your clients. How are they liking your business? What's working for them? What's not working for them? Has it been smooth? Are they satisfied? Can you handle the feedback? So let's talk about feedback. Kelly, have you ever done anything to check in with your clients? And if so, what was that experience like? How'd you do it? And what did you do with the information?
So I love feedback. I always say that I don't have thin skin, which is great. Um, for me, one thing I do want to say about feedback is sometimes whether you can take it or not, it can still be overwhelming because it's like how to apply it, how to adjust it, how to reincorporate it in the best way. Because sometimes I know early on I saw a lot of feedback and kept asking questions, how is this? How is this? And you get a lot of feedback, which is great. But now I've got feedback from person A and feedback from person B and feedback from person C, and they're all different. Now, what do you do with it? Right? I mean, do you pick A? Do you pick C? Do you try to come up with a combination? And sometimes the answer is all of the above. Sometimes it's a matter of things you can and can't do. Sometimes it's a matter of where the best effort is with your time and expenses if you need to give something back to your clients, right? So feedback is a wonderful thing. I do ask my clients for feedback. I have a couple of forms. I'd like to start actually sending personalized emails out. Tina's done that every once in a while, as you mentioned, and I really like that approach as for in instead of just a general form. But I think as business grows, you can't do that to everybody either, because then again, now you're giving them that personal feel of, yes, I would love to hear what you say, but now you're going to get 30 emails back with a bunch of different suggestions, which again are all wonderful. And we want to be hearing and make sure our clients know that we're listening to them, but you can't
Mhm.
always respond to all of the things or incorporate all of the things. So my my leadership tip, I guess, if you will, because I always encourage my clients to ask their employees for feedback.
Mhm.
Make sure that everybody knows that you want to hear what they have to say, but it doesn't mean that you'll always do what they have to say. So yes, I love your ideas, and yes, I will certainly consider them with full heart and full mind,
Mhm.
but I have to make sure that I'm thinking a little bit more broadly. Does that
Yeah,
answer the question?
Yeah.
absolutely. I
Sorry, I
think
took a little bit of a
for
left.
no, that was good. I know, like, so for anyone watching with us or watching the replay, I had my own company for 3 years, and then I came into CEO consulting because Tina and I have the same audience. And, my love for this community is deep. I genuinely love the women in this community, and I love serving in Loudoun County. And so when everything came together and trying to figure out how to bring these pieces together, there was a lot of bumps, lots of hiccups, staffing situations changed, the way everything ebbed and flowed changed. And there felt for a season really that there was more negative feedback than positive. And for a while, it was really hard to hear anything good because for me, it felt bad. However, one of the things that I learned to do with what felt bad, because some of that was my internal things I needed to work through, and some of it was accurate. Like it was just having a hard time getting the systems up and working. What I learned was that if they didn't want me to succeed, they wouldn't give me the feedback. And that was probably the best flex for my brain, like the best understanding was like, and that's like a thing that Tina's really, really like, they give it to you, like she gives it to me, or like as a boss, she tells her team, gives feedback because she wants them there. She wants them to be successful. So if your clients are silent, that's probably more of a bad sign than if they're vocal with you, because it's like, they look at you and go, I want to see you succeed. So this isn't working for me. Can we find a middle ground? And that's a really positive thing. So for anyone in a season where maybe you are doing checks with customers or clients and you are getting not so great feedback, don't get if you can, if you're able to take a couple deep breaths before a response and not be reactive, get that nervous system back in its parasympathetic nervous system so your logic works. And then just realize that even if it's a comment about how you're working, remember that if they wanted you to, if they really didn't care about your well-being in that role, they would just let you fall because it wouldn't matter to them. And I think that that's really important to remember. Now, Heather, what about you? When you check into clients, you're really tech savvy. Do you do like Survey Monkey or something? Like, what's your vibe here?
But believe it or not, no. And one of the reasons is that I have a slightly different model because every month I have to check in with my clients. We are very numbers. Are the keywords how are they ranking?
Right,
Where are you on calls from your Google business profile? So if the numbers are dipping, we have to have a call.
right,
So it's almost like the feedback is um, it's not like the feedback is a part of our monthly calls. What's working, what's not working, how do we need to communicate? And for me, believe it or not, yes, I'm in a tech thing, but I'm a low tech girl. I love technology, don't get me wrong, but I like having just conversations with people. I like working it into what we're doing. I've even had several occasions where I'm like, I'm not getting conversations going with clients, and I'm like, what's going on? I want to be there for you. What can I do? How do we start communicating a little bit better? Things seem to be slipping. What do we need to do? So for me, it's just a part of the process because I don't want it to get bad. I want it to always
right,
I'm a I guess constantly improving kind of person. And so for me, feedback afterwards almost doesn't help. It needs to be in the moment. But again,
right,
my business kind of sort of allows that because we have numbers and we have to talk to each other well, we don't have to, but I like to meet with my clients on a monthly basis to look at what's going on so that we can have that conversation. So for
right,
me, that's what works.
right.
So yeah, the tech girl likes the non-tech approach.
I love that. Well, that's the trend of 2025. Never forget humanizing technology. And if you can be even extra human while using technology, that's even better. So
Well, and that's, I
I think
think
that's delightful.
No, I think that's a part of, in fact, it's so funny. I just updated my LinkedIn and I basically am really trying, this has always been who I am, human plus technology.
Mhm.
And the more that I learn AI related, the more I learn just in general, I want my humanness to come out, but tech is a wonderful tool to help us do the tasks better, to do other things
Yeah,
better, but it is
right.
just a tool.
Right, absolutely. Um, Now we've got about 4 minutes. There are several more topics that we want to cover for June around getting yourself kind of like all checked in, making sure you've reviewed all the different areas of your business. But let's do one more, and then next week we'll pick up where we left off because these are all very good topics. This part is this I'm going to skip everything wrapped around like your online presence, the details of your online presence and your tools and stuff, because I want to talk about systems and tools. I want to talk about auditing your subscriptions and making sure you're not wasting money and auditing your AI. So we're going to skip all that today. Yes, it's on the list. We're just going to skip it today. And I just want to talk about checking your calendar for a second. So when it comes to ensuring that you're um, prepping for this next half of the year, you should definitely be taking time now to time block things that are important to the upcoming season. Some businesses, like especially nonprofits, I'm going to use this as an example. I know most of our businesses are not nonprofits, but we do work with nonprofits. Usually, the second half of the year is like all the events, all the fundraising, everything that, they become their busiest because it's time to do the donor side of everything. So, you need to be checking your calendar and seeing, are there seasonal opportunities that I can capitalize on? For instance, farmer market season's coming, or is there, right? And so is that a part of your strategy as a business? If not, can it be? Can you add it to your calendar with at least the one goal to time block your ability to research it to see if it's a good opportunity to then sponsor and be a part of to help grow brand awareness? Taking a second to look at the calendar and say, what is Q3 and Q4 going to look like for my business? What is the goal going to be? And what is the goal for the ROI? Now, in each of your industries, because of the types of businesses you work, I'm curious to know what that would look like for you. If I have a storefront business, I would want to, or as a marketer recommending someone with a storefront business, I would want them to be expanding their brand awareness right now. I'd want them to be in the community and co-branding with other storefronts or other brands on social so that more people could be getting to know them and go shop with them or whatever it is that their business does. For you two, leadership development, in the summer, what does that look like? How do you plan for Q3 and 4 at the end of the year? And Heather, for you, what does that look like? How do you guys check your calendars and get ready?
So for me, I'm going to take a bit of a left turn here, but I
Mhm,
would encourage you to be looking at what's working and what's not with respect to your calendar, because
mhm.
in the lane of flexibility that we're talking about, I find that we hold ourselves to this one size fits all. I must time block. I must do this. I must do that. This is a perfect time to look at your calendar and figure out how you're keeping your calendar, how you're managing it, what's working, what's not, throw out what's not working and try some new things. Time blocking, or maybe even just grouping your categories or color coding your calendar, adding your tasks on your calendar. There's a lot of things we can. My life is
Mhm.
entirely on my calendar: chores, tasks, emails, everything is in
Me
my
too.
calendar because that's what works for me. But there's other people
Mhm.
that have some kind of a hybrid. So be looking at what's working, what you can optimize, and what you can try new for a month and see how it goes to just keep building out the best version that works for you.
And
Love that.
that's funny, Kelly, because that was the same left turn that I was going to take, meaning
Mhm.
I think for me, one of the things that I failed is not quite the right word, but really struggled with was I didn't block times for work, and everything was
Yes.
getting eaten up by meetings. And so I've
Mhm.
taken a very different approach. Like I block Fridays, although I still end up getting stuff on Fridays. But at any rate,
Mhm.
I have taken a different approach so that I have time to work, so that I have time to think. And I know that's not
Mhm.
quite where you were going with it. You're talking about prepping for the holidays or prepping for other things,
That's
especially in
okay.
marketing, especially in marketing, you do
Mhm.
need that lead up. Um,
Mhm.
but I think starting with the basics of having time to think so that you can prepare for
Absolutely.
those things, I think is really critical. It really has
Mhm.
made a huge difference now that I block time to work.
I
Because
love that.
I was in meetings all the time and it wasn't productive. Um,
Yeah.
and so just to touch on your actual question is,
Mhm.
realize that things like holiday planning
Mhm.
bring out at least 6 to 8 weeks. So if you're talking about
Right.
Thanksgiving and doing marketing around Thanksgiving, count back, what's 6 weeks before that, what's 8 weeks before that. So that
Yeah.
is a critical thing. You do have to do that for holidays and events,
Mm.
etc.
Right. And for anyone who has like a retail business, I would say you need to have your fourth quarter planned in your third
Yeah.
quarter. Do not walk into the fourth quarter with all the chaos that you should be seeing during the holidays trying to set up that promotion. That is unnecessary stress. Unless you're a giant retailer and you have lots of employees, I mean, it's just not worth the stress that that can cause during the holidays. I definitely think that we should talk more about this calendar stuff too, now that we're saying it, because I agree there's both, and we're running over time, so we're gonna, I know for everyone watching, thank you for staying on a few more minutes. But for me, the Pomodoro technique has been critical in my productivity. I cannot stay focused on any given task for longer than 15, 20 minutes. And that's not because I can't focus. It's because someone needs something. The phone is ringing, the text, the email, the urgent request, the what, the kid, the what, it doesn't, there's always something. But then what I realized is when I put myself in working segments, and I would do 1 hour where I would give myself a 15-minute block to implement, a 15-minute block to do emails or whatever I needed, a 15-minute block to check in with my team, and a 15-minute block to drink some water and go for a quick walk. I started getting so much done because I would get it done in like 3 to 7 minutes. And then all of a sudden my creativity started to come back. And then I wanted to get ahead of my work. And then I got excited about taking on more. And so, how you handle your calendar, depending on what type of job you have, I mean, probably for everyone, it matters. So, I definitely think we should spend some time on this calendar stuff. Maybe Tina come hang out with us. I saw she was live with that. She's that calendar queen with her time management mastery skills. So, all right, ladies, listen, everyone who hung out with us live, we did get some comments, so thank you. Mary Sue, she said, Kelly, love that point. Kelly, be clear. Let's see, be clear in how the feedback will be used. I agree. And Kim Kern commented and Tina commented, but for whatever reason, Facebook won't let me see more comments. So thank you, ladies, for hanging out with us live. Anyone watching the replay, feel free to drop comments, questions. And we'll see you guys next week for another episode of Marketing Monday.
Bye,
Have a
guys.
great
Thank you.
week. Bye, friends.